Welcome to the Busy Pastor Podcast. If you're interested in leadership and ministry coaching, go to busypastor.org/coaching. Join the Busy Pastor community today by going to busypastor.org, filling out the form, and you will receive more free resources, starting with our Fab 5 resource, helping you determine the 5 things only you can do. Episode 36 of the Busy Pastor Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to all of our new listeners. My name is Greg Gibson. Here with my co-host, Trent, Stewart, the lead pastor at Foothills Church. Today we have a special guest with us to continue our discussion on small groups, Pastor Landon Reynolds. Welcome, man. Thanks for joining us.
Excited to be here.
And so what is your role here at Foothills Church?
So for the past 7 years, I've been serving in Next Gen family ministry world, and I'm just now transitioning out of that, but I've been the Next Gen pastor here and been able to work with kids and students.
Awesome, man. And Pastor Trent, you've known him for a long time.
Yes, I've known him since he was in middle school. He was in our student ministry at my last church, and so I've been able to see God do some amazing things in his life and growth and leadership, and so happy to have him here at FC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so the purpose of today's conversation, yes, is around small groups, but in particularly, we want to talk about leading student ministry small groups. So there's a lot of differences, right?
Absolutely, tons.
When it comes to adults and student groups. And so let's talk right from the beginning about those differences.
Yeah.
So immediately, what is different about leading a student ministry small group than an adult group?
So like you said, a ton is different. You know, the goal is still the same, that you're looking for spiritual growth, you're looking for discipleship, and you're looking to build relationships, but just how you approach those things are of course very, very different. So I think really the thing that sticks out to me the most about the difference between adult small groups and student small groups is that so much of what you're doing is like relational, like foundational work. So like it's all about, especially there at the beginning, is gaining that rapport with students and gaining, because, especially if you're leading a middle school group, a 6th and 7th grade group, especially a group of boys, you're going to be lucky to get through a 30 to 45 minute group conversation with really anything that is like meaningful happening, and often I think the temptation is to walk away and say, that wasn't a meaningful small group. But if there was a relationship built, if there was an inside joke that came out of that, guess what? You have created a relationship, and those things are going to lead to the more meaningful conversation. So we're, as an adult group, there's kind of a little bit more of a seriousness that in most groups, that everybody's kind of there for the same reason.
The tone is different.
The tone is very different. Yeah.
Sometimes you've got students there that maybe want to be there, and some that their parents made them come, and so you're already kind of at different expectations for everybody. So it sounds like that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely. So if you walk into the group and you walk away and everybody likes each other and wants to come back, that's a huge win. Because then you're going to be able to drop in and be able to teach truth, especially over a long period of time, which is what we hope small group leaders would do.
So relationships are key and, paramount in small groups, period. But
absolutely.
For students, it's maybe even on steroids.
Yes, absolutely. I would say 80% of what you're doing in a small group time isn't really even about the small group discussion. It's so much about what's happening outside of the small group. Are you showing up to games? Are you engaging in the group messages? Are you doing the things? Because that is what's going to make that 20% of that time you're spending with them actually matter to them, because it matters what we're talking about. The content's great, but for students, it's that relationship.
Are they going to listen at that point?
Yeah.
Do you have the credibility built up in their life that this person cares about me, this person is with me, he knows my life, and now all of a sudden, the more that happens, it sounds like the more they're tuned in to the spiritual truth that you might share in their life.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, because relationships are so important when it comes to leading students and leading student small groups. It's a big ask to do that, right? Like to step into that space and say, I'm also going to give an evening to go to games and to go to Friday night and to have them over and to do lunch after church or something like that. So what are you looking for in those small group leaders? What are some key characteristics?
Yeah.
When you're recruiting someone to say, you got to step into this relational space. What are some of those things? Those things you're looking for in that person?
So the key characteristics that we talk about with a student small group leader is healthy, relatable, and growing. So those are the three characteristics that we're constantly looking for. So when it comes to, are you a healthy person spiritually? Is your family healthy? If that student or that small group of student comes over to your house to hang out, to watch a game or something, they're going to see a healthy marriage. Are they going to see that you even if you're an unmarried small group leader, do you have those healthy relationships? Are you overall healthy spiritually, physically, all those different things? Just be a good model. Then growing. Are you growing in your relationship with Jesus? I think what deters a lot of small group leaders is that they think that I got to be this role model and have it all together. And you don't. You're going, and that's okay for even students to see on an appropriate level that you don't have it all together. But are you growing? Are you showing up are you taking your steps in your discipleship journey? And then the hardest one is, are you relatable? And this is where when you tell a small group leader or someone who's wanting to be a small group leader, hey, you're healthy, you're growing, but you're just not relatable with students, that's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
And again, the temptation is think, well, I'm not a cool 25-year-old college student or a young adult. How am I going to be relatable? But being relatable is so much less about being cool and just about like being willing to relate to them on their level.
Yeah, because we've got older leaders in their 60s who are just knocking it out of the park because they're relating to a certain segment and group of kids that need that kind of leader. And so, you might be young, you might be old. The relatable thing is not,
it's not an age thing.
It's not an age thing. It's not a cool thing. It's because every kid is different and every need is different. That's great.
Yeah. So talk to me about the rhythms for student small groups. What does it look like here at FC? So when do they happen, first of all?
Yeah, so we work in a middle school and high school model that are not two separate ministries, that are one ministry just kind of operating at different service hours, basically. Now, of course, we change the content in small groups, to be appropriate for each level. But what we're doing is that we have two worship experiences on a Wednesday night. The high school students, which for us is 9th through 12th grade, meet before like at 6:30. Okay. And then that's while the middle school students are in their worship experience.
So they're doing small group.
They're doing small groups at 6:30.
Okay. While the middle schoolers are doing worship.
And then basically they just switch. So at 7:30, high schoolers are in worship experience, and then middle schoolers are in small groups.
And that's on Wednesday night.
That's on Wednesday night. And kind of within the rhythms, we really try to encourage that you have an outside, what we call relational event, happening about every 2 months. So we're hoping that small group leaders are organizing relational things happening outside to go get pizza together, to watch a game together, to do something together about every 2 months, because that's the glue that holds the groups together. So that's kind of the rhythm that we have.
At the same time, they're showing up to games whenever they can. You're not asking them to do that every week.
Absolutely.
But if they can go see one game a year, my daughter's small group leader was there last night to see her play in her tennis game. And so that was just awesome to see that. And that was like her eyes lit up. She was so excited, like, oh my gosh, this is, so that's huge for students. Yeah. On that level.
We talk about how we want you to show up regularly and show up randomly in your student's life. And so regularly, you're at that regular small group talk every single week, but then you're also randomly as you can.
It's good.
How are you holding small group leaders accountable to show up randomly?
Yeah. So every small group leader in our ministry has a small group leader coach. Okay. So they're at the small group leaders are held to the leader level in our leadership pipeline, which I know you guys have talked about here on this podcast. But then at the coaches level, they're meeting with them once or twice a semester to do what we call coaching coffees. And they're just sitting down, how's it going? Asking them those questions. What have you done? What have you done with your group? Are you showing up? And they're able to have those kind of accountability conversations to get feedback, to encourage, But the coaches are really key of keeping people accountable, because in our student ministry right now, we have anywhere between 35 to 40 different small groups, which means 35 to 40 times 2 small group leaders. So for one pastor to do that is impossible. So those coaches are key for accountability.
Yeah. We talked about coaching in the previous podcast. If you missed that podcast, I encourage you to go back and listen to that, because it is vital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when kids come on Wednesday night, they go to small group for 45 minutes.
Yes.
What does that look like? You know, they're not just, it's not all relational time even there. You've got a plan that the small group leaders are preparing. They're coming in hoping to have something happen.
Yeah.
What is that?
So we spend a lot of time on our small group guides. And our small group guides, we do in-house curriculum, basically, to where we're developing, we're developing more than a small group leader would need, because, a high school girls small group, that's kind of like the longest lasting small group that is regularly happening. A 6th grade boys small group, if they get through 10 minutes of the content and nobody talks and is able to listen and then respond, and it's not just jokes the whole time, then that's a huge win. So what we do is we really try to, for high school groups, we try to prepare talks that set the message up. So, or prepare small group guides that set the message up. So we are trying to basically give them things to talk about, so that way when the high school communicator speaks, they're kind of putting the ball on the tee for them. Now, for middle school, what we're trying to do is we're more setting up attention in the talk to lead to a small group conversation, because small groups happen after the message for middle school students. So one, high school, because of our model, high school is designed to set up the talk. Middle school is more designed to kind of that tension be relieved in that.
And so in that, though, it all kind of revolves around whatever that sermon is going to be. So it's based off the sermon of that night, which I think is awesome as well. It models the same thing that adults are doing. And
Exactly.
There's
alignment.
That consistency, I think, is good for the church.
Yeah. So what do you mean by tension?
So a middle school message, he's not going to answer every single question. He's going to set up, how do we do that? How do we love our friends? How can we do that? I want you guys to go talk more about that with your small group leader. To where that there's like, I want to apply this to my life. I need to apply this to my life, but maybe the specifics that you can talk through how to love your neighbor, or you can talk through how to stand up for your faith, or all those different applications can kind of get really specific in small groups based upon whether you're a 6th grader and you're still in an intermediate school, or you're at 8th graders hanging around with 9th graders and 10th graders. So they're kind of setting that up to say, I want to do this. I need to do this. Now let's talk more practically about that in groups.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, no, that is good. I think it's so important to think about that importance of maturity for middle school and high schoolers, and what you're trying to get out of those groups. Because there is going to be a different goal. The goal is relational discipleship. The goal is relationships with small group leaders. There's a different goal for middle school groups and high school groups, and and even kids groups. And so when it comes to kids groups, so I'm going to ask you. I'm going to go to kids groups for a second, because you served in a role where you facilitated leadership for all of our Next Gen ministries.
Yes.
So do our kids small groups look different than our student small group environments? Are we doing something different there?
Yes, we are doing things differently, but what we try to do is, again, just like a 6th grade small group is going to be different than a 12th grade small group, the K through 1st has their own curriculum that's different than the 4th through 5th. So 4th through 5th, that preteen curriculum looks more like a middle school curriculum. To where the K through 1, they have crafts involved. They have heavy icebreaker questions, and they're meeting for a long amount of time. To where like a middle school small group, they might be done in 20 minutes, but you got an hour and 10 minutes to fill up.
However long the preacher
preaches. You need maybe some extra crafts on some Sundays. So yes, they are different. elementary is going to be heavy icebreaker, heavy story, narrative driven, trying to find those application points. And then to where middle school is going to be more of more thinking through things. We're trying to engage their hands, their heart, and their head with an elementary group, to where we're moving more towards the heart and the head, and as we're trying to engage them in that.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that, because what I wanted to draw from our listeners is I wanted our listeners to see that we have the same ministry philosophy, right? From birth through 12th grade. We're not trying to do an educational model in K-1, but we're really trying to, from the beginning, create alignment for what we consider our win for relational discipleship, which is in small groups.
Yes, and so what we even talk about is that whether you are a leader for a baby's environment or the 12th grade environment, you have the same principles guiding the way you operate. So to where a baby's environment, a lot of what you're doing is connecting with the parent as well. So if you're going to, what we talk about is lead small, which is Orange's leadership of small group philosophy. You need to lead small with the baby's environment with those parents to make sure that you're present in their lives to show up, because that'll directly impact if that kid's a 5th grader and still in that ministry.
So you talk about lead small. What does it mean to lead small?
So leading small is by Reggie Joyner and the Orange philosophy of leading small groups. So we talk about how lead small means, number one, the 5 principles are to be present. So you're showing up regularly, randomly, mentally in your small groups environments. The second thing is to create a safe place. So in babies' environments, that's a very you're making sure that room stays safe. The right parents are picking up. But as the kids get older, you're helping them know that this is a safe place to share. But it's also about the policies and procedures as well. But it's more so about creating that place where a student can share what's going on. And then number 3 is to partner with parents. So you're no matter what environment you're serving in, from the smallest all the way to the biggest, is that you are making sure there's a relationship with the parents, because no matter how good of a small group leader you are, the parent always has more influence, for better or for worse. So we're coming alongside of them. And then we're making it personal. And so we're sharing our story. We're sharing appropriate things in our lives that we've struggled with in the past. That way we can meet them where they're at, to show that this is not just an educational thing. This is something that's real to me. And then we're moving them out. And so the 5th principle is move them out, because there's one day that they're not going to be in our ministry anymore. They're going to go to college. They're going to graduate from preschool into elementary. And we want always working and always leading with the end in mind as it comes to that, because we want to make sure that their journey continues on past us.
And as a parent, I've had little kids. Now my kids are all teenagers. I have 4 teenagers. The idea of partnering with me is critical. It's huge. I want and know that I need help. And so the older my kids get, it seems the less, they're listening. And so I do know that they're listening, and I do know that they're asking questions, even though that might not be to me. I know it's going to be someone, and I want that someone to be their small group leader. And so I think that is so pivotal and huge in the life of students specifically.
Parenting ministry is relational discipleship, very much so. And I think when you get to show up in the life of a student or a child in a relational way, where you're showing up regularly and randomly, but you're also doing that regularly and randomly for parents. As you said, it really is an incredible thing.
And that's a huge difference. Again, another difference between adult ministry and student ministry is this partnering with parents. An adult leader that's pouring into a student, is also important for that person to have a relationship with mom and dad. And I know for me, when small group leaders of my kids come up and just say, hey, I want you to know that, Bailey is just doing incredible. I see God's hand and working and this and that. I mean, it just lights me up. You know, it just fuels me. And so that helps me, that helps her mom. And that's just a really positive thing for the life of your church. And so I think it's important to teach your small group leaders of students all of these principles and back them up so that they get excited about not just discipling a student, but helping mom and dad as well.
For sure.
That's right. And so Landon, thank you for being on
thanks for having me.
The episode today, talking about student ministry, kids ministry, small group ministry, how all that comes together. Yes, and so thank you so much, Landon, for being a part of the episode today. It's awesome to hear your passion for small groups and kids small groups, student small groups, how all those things come together. And thank you so much for listening to the Busy Pastor podcast. The last 5 episodes have been on small group ministry, so go back and listen to those to catch you up to today's conversation. And we'll see you next week. Until then, let's continue to be busy with the right things. Thank you for listening to the Busy Pastor podcast. As we close today's episode, we want to invite you to do a few things. Join the Busy Pastor community today by going to busypastor.org and filling out the form. You'll receive more free resources, starting with our Fab 5 resource, helping you determine the 5 things only you can do. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Busy Pastor. If you like today's episode, subscribe to the Busy Pastor and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources, join the Busy Pastor community by going to busypastor.org. The Busy Pastor podcast is produced by Andrew Lindstrom, video production Jake Tipton, audio engineer Brian Papick, music by Brandon Sharp, and graphics by Zach Shaddix. See you next week. Until then, let's be busy with the right things. Thank you so much for tuning into our YouTube page. Hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and don't forget to comment below.
New episodes come out every Thursday. For more content and to join the Busy Pastor community, visit busypastor.org.